What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rabbler HQ. Because Rabbler, I'm going to do a quick little, just kind of interim video. My next full-length video for you is tackling the steering and the conversion to a Pinto steering rack. I'm waiting on a few parts for that, so in the meantime, I am going to see about getting our rear disc brakes put on. So, nothing real groundbreaking here. I'm using a kit from Right Stuff. Again, if you hadn't seen the earlier videos, this is a Dana 60 rear end. It's got Mosier axles, 410 gears, and a Sure Grip differential. Gears will probably change eventually. That's not going to be affected by what we're doing today. I just want to get the caliper brackets on, the calipers and rotors and things, just to make sure that everything clears and is lined up and where it needs to go. So, like I said, just kind of a quick filler video for you to show you what we're working on in the meantime, and I'll have another full-length video, hopefully either later this week or the beginning of next, maybe even over the weekend. Kind of depends on how much time I get and when the parts come in. So, let's get started. So, first thing I have to do is change back my wheel studs. I had bought a 15 by 10 set of wheels just for mock-up that came off of a Ford Ranger, I think. They had 4-inch back spacing, and with the back spacing and the width, it made the tires I'm running way too wide. It didn't do me any good whatsoever, but you know, of course, I switched to the wheel studs to the Ford and Mopar 5-on-4.5. So first thing I want to do before we get too far into this, slide the axle out and switch back to the GM pattern, the 5-on-4.75, which is the other holes. They just thread out, and we'll zip them back in and start putting the rest of the kit together. Apparently it needs a little gentle persuasion. Alright, now that I've got that switched over, I want to show you this kit, or this rear end rather, had disc brakes on it in the past. So it's already had a conversion once, but the previous owner kept the kit. So some of the things that normally you would have to do on a Dana 60 or Chrysler 8 3/4 have already been done. One of those is to remove the old style bearings and install what they call the green bearings if you don't already have them. And what those are is a bearing that's actually got like a circlip retainer in it. And you'll also put in a spacer, which essentially takes up the room that your backing plate from your drum brakes used. So I'll show you that. There's the spacer. Mine already has it, like I said, and the bearings have been pressed on. It's pretty much set to go as far as that goes. So what we have to do is just slide it back in. Normally you would also have to replace these bolts with T-bolts that come in the kit. Again, like I said, this has already had disc brakes at one time, so that kind of saves me. So I'm going to go ahead and get this slid on there, and then we'll start putting the brackets on. Alright, first thing that goes on is the adapter plate for the caliper bracket. This slides over that spacer that I showed you and is held in place by the little fine thread nuts and lock washers supplied in the kit. So this will go on and get all tightened down. I'm not going to torque it right now because it's going to come back apart for the gear change, but I do want to get everything put together and make sure it all lines up and fits. So don't give me too hard a time if you don't see me breaking out a torque wrench to really get these things where they're going to be in the final position. It's just not a big deal right now. So follow along. One thing I forgot, these bolts are what hold the caliper bracket itself on to the adapter plate. They need to go in first, otherwise you won't get them around the axle flange. So I guess I'll get those on now. Alright, what I'm finding out is the nuts that came with this kit are not locking nuts, that's why they came with the lock washers, but the T-bolts that were on this axle originally are too short to use the nuts and lock washers. So the original nuts were actual locking nuts, which means they're tapered over and they're meant to go in place and they hold themselves without the lock washers. So on final assembly of this, I'm going to go ahead and replace those bolts, but like I said, for right now, for what I'm doing, these are going to work just fine. Alright, so we got that all snugged up. Next we've got spacers. In fact, I slid them on already, but these spacers go on in between that adapter bracket and the caliper bracket. So those go on, then the caliper bracket goes on, and another handful of nuts and washers, nothing special. So get that on, and then it's off to the caliper. Alright, so here's our caliper. Big single piston, but it's a rear brake, so you don't need crazy braking, but at least not right now. We'll find out later if we do. Pretty straightforward. Keep in mind when you're doing something like this, the bleeder always goes to the top. There is a right and left caliper. So anyway, we've got the correct caliper. I need to pull the slide pins out. And when I do a final installation on this, you do want to put a little bit of the slider grease in there. Helps your pads go back and forth, keeps them from getting stuck, and allows it to self-adjust. But for what we're doing, like I said, we'll hit that later. Right now, we'll keep the grease out of everything. Actually, you know what? Might not be a bad idea to put the rotor on first, eh? Probably would make the caliper fit more correctly. See, the rotors are dual drilled, but for some reason they're not sliding over the wheel studs. They've got 1/2-inch holes for the bigger studs and the 7/16 holes, but they're not quite making it. So let me do a little quick cleanup on the clearance holes and we'll make it work. So I misspoke a minute ago, just for the record. The larger holes are for 5/8, these are 1/2-inch studs. So whatever, just in the interest of being accurate. Just took the die grinder, the carbide bit, just kind of spun them around the holes a couple times. No problem, slides right on now. So let's get back to mounting the caliper. Alright, so caliper's on. That's pretty much the majority of it. We do have to run brake lines in a bracket, things like that. The kit does come with tabs. In fact, I'll grab those and show you real quick. Okay, so these are the weld-on tabs that come with the kit, and those are what hold your flexible brake hoses. So weld these to the rear end back there. We bolt the banjo end. I don't know how easy it is to see through the plastic, but we bolt that banjo end to the caliper, and then the hex end slides through that bracket and then just gets clipped in place here. And after that is when you run the hard lines to our splitter and then back up front to the master cylinder. So anyway, that's it for today. I just wanted to do a quick little filler video while we're waiting on some steering parts and let you know we are still making progress. So other sides are exactly the same as what you saw here. A little harder to film because I'm up against the wall over there. But anyway, let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the little bell next to the subscribe button to make sure you get notified when new episodes come out. And watch, we have some we have some giveaways coming up soon, as well as some pretty big updates in the next week or two. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.